Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I'm going to talk about the location in the south of France where I was a couple of weeks ago, which has an important Rolling Stones connection. So I didn't know it before I booked the time. We were booked 5 days in Nice, me and my kids, and when I got there I just casually looked up where the Stones had recorded Exile on Main Street because I knew it was in France somewhere, and to my delight it was a couple of miles along the coast in Villefranche, where coincidentally my brother was staying as well. So we met my brother for lunch there, and between us we managed to spot the house with help from the internet, which is not visible from the road, but it is visible from the bay or across the bay. So the thumbnail of this video shows, if you home in to the top right through the arch there on the other side of the bay, with the house with the little marble statues in a row. Let's wait for the plane. So that's where they were from May 1971 until October 1971. So they came out, they left England in end of April after doing a farewell concert in London, I think. And then Mick Jagger got married in Saint-Tropez, which is not far along the coast. He thought it would be a quiet wedding, but he chose the French Riviera towards the beginning and middle of summer, so it was pretty crowded, and they had to jostle their way through the streets, through the crowds, and through the press. And Keith actually, in his book, just says he just took off from the wedding and hung out with some mate and didn't bother going to the reception. At that wedding was among the guests were Paul McCartney and Ringo Starr, who was the first time they'd seen each other socially for over a year. So then they looked around the area for recording studios. They looked in Cannes, I think they looked around Nice, couldn't find anywhere that was suitable or that was not extortionately expensive, so decided to use the villa that Keith had rented called Nelcolt in Villefranche, and the basement of that mansion or villa provided quite good studio rooms for them to record in, albeit a little damp and lacking in ventilation, apparently, hence the song Ventilator Blues. But the Rolling Stones had brought along their Rolling Stones mobile recording studio, which apparently had been built recently for £65,000, so they installed it in the basement. They had apart from the 5 members of the Stones, including Mick Taylor at the time, we have Nicky Hopkins on keyboards, Jim Price on trumpet, and Bobby Keys on sax. And did I mention Nicky Hopkins on keyboards? I think I did. Didn't hear of Billy Preston being down at Nelcote, but he's on the album, so maybe his contributions were not recorded down there, or maybe he was down there. I'm not sure. If any of you know, you can comment. So they had a great time, albeit Mick didn't particularly like it because this album was being made in Keith's domain, and Keith kind of ruled the schedule. And when he wanted to go to put his kid to bed, or when he wanted to go and see his wife, then the recording had to stop, or Mick quite often was sitting waiting around for Keith to arrive so they could start a songwriting session, and often had to leave disappointed. So, and it also wasn't ideal that Charlie had rented a house 3 hours drive away, so he was only there Monday to Friday. I don't think any of the others particularly enjoyed staying at Nelcote. Bianca Jagger didn't, so they had a house just north of Nice. So anyway, despite the logistical problems, I think it's provided a unique backdrop for that album, and one can hear the roughness of the recording. And kind of if you see pictures of the basement, I think there are, let me see where I can find the best pictures. Maybe there's been various reissues of Exile. I forgot to show you the main album. Yeah, this is the main album. Came out May the 12th, 1972, and this was the inner sleeve, and with the song credits there, handwritten by Mick Jagger. And then in this booklet here, on the reissue from 2010, I think there's some pictures of the basement. Here you can see the Jim Price and Bobby Keys with a couple of people on the floor there. Again, another person on the floor. I'm not sure if you can see that. I'm not sure if those pictures are taken at Nelcott or not, but so yeah, a lot of drugs were going down. Keith was in the middle of his heroin phase, and he says quite honestly in his book he got some roadie to go to Marseille on the train, come back with a small bag of pure heroin and a huge bag of lactose, and with strict instructions to mix it 97 lactose to 3 heroin. So Keith says he spent hours in his bathroom with the scales measuring it out. So that was probably didn't help the structure of the recording, but I think songwriting-wise they were on fire during this period. I find it the most interesting period, Sticky Fingers and this album together. Did also pick up the picture sleeve of Brown Sugar in Nice in a record shop. He was only charging €2. Just give a shout out to the name of the shop, Hit Import, Votre Disquaire à Nice, with a nice guy running the shop. Told me some stories, and also the story, because later on in the record, I think more or less when the sessions had ended, the house got broken into and 11 guitars were stolen. And the owner of this record shop in Nice tells me that some of those guitars are still in the Nice area, and people know that they are stolen goods, and some people refuse to play them because they know that they're stolen goods. But I guess the security back then was not particularly tight. One could just walk in, and most of the occupants of the house were off their trolley or asleep, so it would be fairly easy to rob the place, I think. Also picked up this Ringo single, by the way, at the same shop. He only charged me 50 cents for it. I would have paid a lot more. What else have I got to show you? So the Sticky Fingers album came out just around the time they moved to France. So this is my original with the zip cover, just showing it to you because my son picked up his new vinyl in Nice and it doesn't have the zip. So the original zip probably goes for a bit of money. The alternative Spanish copy of Sticky Fingers with the treacle. This is not a particularly rare version because this is a 1980 press. Interesting colour picture of the original insert. This video, Stones in Exile, is a great documentary on the making of the album, and Mick and Charlie are going around Olympic Studios, Stargrove, where Mick used to live, and place in LA, but the one place they don't visit is Nelcott, and I think the reason is because they approached this is a picture taken at Nelcott. They approached the current owner, who's a Russian guy who paid 100 million euros for it in 2005, I think. I got that right. 2005, yeah. He refused permission for any footage to be filmed there, so that's a shame. We've got stories of when the kids wouldn't go to sleep, Keith used to jump in his speedboat and go on a ride to Monaco, which is just down the road, Monte Carlo, and the kids would fall asleep on the way, or on the way back they'd drink cocktails and come back. So it was quite the life. That summer of '71 apparently weather-wise was gorgeous, and you can imagine they were having a great time. They'd just left the UK because of the 93% tax they were being charged, and for a while they were, well, at least Keith was happy in the south of France, the rest of the band less so. But then the police came knocking, word got out that there were drugs involved, and they had to leave the country in a bit of a hurry, all of them. So Keith had to continue paying rent for that place for another 18 months, although he wasn't living there, which is a bit excessive. So there was an article in The Guardian about the Nelcott sessions. Robert Greenfield, who was there from Rolling Stone to do an interview with Keith, said, "People appeared, disappeared. No one had a last name. You didn't know who anybody was. There were 16 people for lunch, and lunch went on for 3.5 hours. It was an unparalleled cast of characters." That's probably a mild statement compared to some of the observations he had. Anyway, it's great that whole experience has got me back into this album, and I just wanted to show you the Dark Horse George Harrison thing. And isn't that similar to the? It almost looks like the same handwriting, but it can't be. But if you'd agree, that I think that's very similar. I think George nicked the idea, not that it's particularly original to write down your own song credits on the album, but I think I'm right in saying those ones are pretty damn similar. Neil Young's done it on a few occasions, I seem to remember. This place, Nelcott, was allegedly the headquarters of the Gestapo in the war, although we think that might be an old wives' tale, because the Germans were only there for 9 months between summer of 43 and summer of 44, or 11 months, sorry. And apparently on the ventilators in the basement there were gold swastikas, and when I read up about it, they thought it was unlikely that if the Germans were only there for 11 months they'd put gold swastikas on the ventilators in the basement. But Keith told that story and said, "Don't worry, we're here now." But it was originally built in the 1890s at the height of the Belle Epoque era in France, between the Franco-Prussian War 1870 and the outbreak of World War I 1914, and apparently swastikas were quite common at the time, so that probably explains the swastikas. As I say, you won't get anywhere near the house if you're going there, but the best place to view it is through binoculars or through your camera from the other side of the bay or from the beach. You get quite a good view of the frontage with the statues, quite distinctive. So I don't know if that Russian guy is a music fan or if he's aware of the history, but he did pay an awful lot of money for the house, so he must be aware of its significance, I guess. Anyway, completely got me back into Exile, got me playing it again, got me playing the outtakes, so all worthwhile because of that. And thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.